Adam, the Knicks have out-rebounded the Cavs to a 3-1 lead. The series is giving us some idea of what the team will need to do in the offseason to shore up these issues. What moves would you make to improve this roster?
Well, it's an interesting question because obviously the Cavs still have a lot of game left to play, and I do say game because it is one game at a time now from here on out. But it could go longer. We could see a best of 7 still fully materialize. Just as an exercise, I think it's an interesting concept here. What are we lacking, and why are we actually struggling to get out of the first round? You know, Ricky Rubio, I'm going to go right at him. I don't know if he can be a backup point guard to Darius Garland in the future. I think he's a good players coach. We always talk about that, somebody that sits on the bench and can kind of be another coach down the row that can help these players identify what's important on the court. Rubio is not cutting it. We need a stronger point guard option to back up Darius, and I would almost look for the sixth man to come from that role. You know, we talked about in the past if Sexton had stayed on this team, turning him into the sixth man. So I think we've always talked a little bit about the point guard coming off the bench, playing a larger role. Certain players on the team, there's a big question mark of what you do moving forward. Isaac Okoro, I know we still want to believe in the kid. He's 22 years old. This is his 4th season in the league. And that means he's getting a little long in the tooth as far as him just having NBA stats to count up. And I'm concerned that he's running out of time to be relevant on a team like this, because the Cavaliers now are firing on all cylinders to head to the finals in the next couple of years and try to win a ring before they've got to rethink this roster. And we saw in tonight's game that he missed some big shots in the corner, wide open, and that was when we had a lead. So I think Isaac, unfortunately, you know, I thought he was fine as a starting small forward option if you're not going to make him shoot the ball much and just kind of let him play tough defense. That's not the way that it's panned out. It seems like they really want a shooter to be in that role. And him coming off the bench just hasn't cut it. So I'm thinking that maybe they've got to look in another direction and trade him in the offseason, simply because they have a lot of redundancy on the team. I would rather see, as you mentioned, I'd rather see Lamar out there over Okoro at this point because he's got more size than Okoro does. The thing that's glared from the start of the season, the thing that we've worried about from number one, are a backup big to the two that we have starting. And I think that we had hoped that Isaiah Mobley would be brought along a little more. And instead he played with the charge throughout the year and didn't really see much time as a Cavalier. So Dean Wade, Isaiah Mobley, these guys, I expected to possibly use them in these situations, and now we don't have them. Isaiah, because we didn't bring him along, and Wade, I don't know why. It seemed like they wanted to use him a lot, but they just won't bring him in. So the big is a big question. No pun intended, because right now we're undersized a little bit by not having a third option, and our guys just need somebody to come off the bench to provide that spark to grab some boards. So
yeah, I think that those are all really solid points. I think that I would go with wing as the number one issue right now. You brought up Isaac. LeVert really isn't a wing per se. Jetty has always been up and down in his career, along with LeVert. They just don't have a consistent wing. Even I like Lamar as well, but Lamar is not a consistent outside shooter. I think that he's a good role player. They don't have a three that is somebody that the rest of the team seems to have a good ebb and flow with. I think they do sometimes with Isaac. I think they do sometimes with Jetty. I think they do sometimes with LeVert. Like, it's not consistent. And they just need some type of player who they can trust to hit an outside shot occasionally if that's what they want them to do, or put the ball on the floor and dribble some if that's what they want that person to do. And that's just missing right now. I don't know if they would trade Isaac. I think that something needs to be resolved with him where he is actually given some actual direction offensively more than what he's getting right now. And this goes back to our earlier question, which is I think the coaching staff and JB specifically his feet should be put to the fire here a little bit with how slow Isaac has been evolving. He was a top 5, I think he was a top 8 pick at least, and you knew that his offense wasn't super great. Well, if you want him to play solid offense, you probably should have brought him along a little bit quicker. And the only other, I agree with you about the backup big, but I'm actually kind of comfortable with Isaiah Mobley potentially doing some of that. And then the other guy I think is just a bit of a crapshoot of a player is Jetty. I think that Jetty, if they lose their next game, I could see Jetty being gone this offseason because I don't think the coaching staff knows what to do with him at times. You and I have noted how we feel like they've treated him unfairly at times because there were some seasons where Jetty was starting at point and you're just going, what is going on? I mean, just out of necessity, they needed to do that.
Yeah, injuries a lot of the time.
Yeah, but I think I saw in this game that Jetty can't be trusted at times because he's not a guy who can hit an outside shot consistently. And even then, he just makes weird rotations at times and isn't always on the same page defensively. And he's probably the guy I would say they need to move away from. And they need to figure out more stuff with their bench because if you move away from Jetty, then what are you going for? Are you going for, like what you mentioned, more of a 6-man point guard or a wing that's strictly 3-and-D, whatever the case may be. But those are the players that I would highlight.
Thank you for listening to the Cavaliers Basketball Club podcast. Let's go Cavs!